Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. Buckle up, as it's a long one, and don't forget to listen to the end of the story to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, guys, and please like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I need some perspective on a family situation that's been causing a lot of tension. Here's what happened. About 3 years ago, I started my own business in a niche market that I'm really passionate about. I had always dreamed of running my own company, and after years of planning and saving, I finally took the plunge. First months were tough, as any new business would experience, but I was optimistic and determined to make it work. To grow my business, I needed investors. After several pitches, I managed to secure a meeting with a potential investor who seemed very interested in my business model and vision. This meeting was a big deal for me, and I prepared for it meticulously. Feeling confident and perhaps a bit naive, I decided to invite my sister to the meeting. My sister, Sarah, has been working in the same field for a bit longer than I have, and has always been seen as more experienced and successful by our family. I thought having her there would show the investor that my family was involved in the business and believed in my business. However, the meeting did not go as planned. Instead of supporting me, Sarah started bad-mouthing me and my business. She made snide comments about my lack of experience and suggested that my business wasn't doing as well as I was making it out to be. She implied that I was overreaching and not ready for such a substantial investment. The investor understandably backed out after hearing her comments. I was devastated. After that disastrous meeting, I hit a low point. I struggled to keep my business afloat, barely scraping by. The disappointment was crushing, and I felt betrayed by Sarah. I had to downsize and let go of some employees. There were moments I doubted my ability to succeed and wondered if Sarah was right. But deep down, I knew my business had potential, and I wasn't ready to give up. I worked tirelessly, often pulling all-nighters and sacrificing personal time to keep the business running. Slowly, things started to pick up. I revamped my business plan, improved my product line, and started networking with other entrepreneurs. Eventually, my hard work paid off. I found another investor who believed in my vision. This time, I kept the meeting private, ensuring no external influences could sabotage it. With the new investor's support, my business began to flourish. Within a year, it was booming. We expanded our product range, increased our market share, and started gaining recognition in the industry. It felt incredibly validating to see my hard work pay off, especially after the rocky start. While my business was thriving, Sarah's situation took a turn for the worse. The company she was working for started having financial issues, and she lost her job. So one day she knocks on my door asking for a position in my company. She claimed she was sorry for what she did and just needed a chance to get back on her feet. When Sarah showed up at my office, I was stunned. I hadn't seen or spoken to her since the investor meeting. She looked desperate. She started apologizing profusely, saying that she realized she made a huge mistake and that she was just jealous and insecure at the time. She begged me to give her a job, even if it was a minor role, just so she could start rebuilding her career. I couldn't believe the nerve she had to come to me for help after what she did. The memories of that disastrous meeting and the months of struggle that followed came flooding back. I felt anger. I looked at her in the eye and laughed, telling her that after all she had done, there was no way I could ever trust her in my business. She tried to argue, saying she had changed and just needed a chance. But I stood firm and refused to hire her. My decision did not sit well with our parents. Sarah has always been the golden child in our family, the one who could do no wrong. When they found out about her job loss and my refusal to help her, they were furious. They accused me of being heartless and vindictive. They didn't seem to care about the fact that Sarah had tried to sabotage my business. To them, she was in need, and family should help family no matter what. Our parents have always favored Sarah, and this situation only highlighted that bias. They told me that by not backing her, I was turning my back on family values and abandoning my sister in her time of need. The arguments escalated, and in a heated moment, they said they were disowning me if I didn't help her. Now I'm torn. On one hand, I feel completely justified in my actions. Sarah tried to destroy my dreams and put me through hell. Why should I help someone who showed no hesitation in sabotaging me? On the other hand, I don't want to lose my family over this. I never imagined that standing up for myself would lead to such drastic consequences. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for not hiring my sister after what she did? OP's sister actively sabotaged OP's business in front of a potential investor. That's a serious betrayal. OP has every right to protect her business from someone who has already shown that they don't have their best interest at heart. It's unfair for OP's parents to expect OP to just overlook that. She is clearly the golden child and always will be. So it's better to keep a safe distance to avoid more heartache. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. Family or not, your sister tried to ruin your business. It's understandable why you wouldn't want to hire her. Your parents disowning you over this is extreme, and it sounds like they are enabling her behavior. She needs to face the consequences of her actions. Everyone sucks here. Your sister was absolutely in the wrong for what she did, but laughing in her face might have been a bit much. However, given the circumstances, your feelings are justified. Your parents should recognize that she was in the wrong first and not put all the blame on you. Not the a-hole. She didn't just criticize you, she sabotaged a major business opportunity. It's understandable that you wouldn't trust her in your business. Your parents are being unfair by not acknowledging her role in the situation. You deserve better than to have to deal with their favoritism and her betrayal. I, 21 female, and my husband, 20 male, have been together for a little over 3 years, and have been living with each other for a year and a half. Recently, I found out about an affair he has been having with one of our mutual friends. Let's call the mutual friend Sue. Sue had been friends with him since a few months into our relationships. She would always join us to hang out and play games together and so on. Sue and I became friends quickly, but this is where things take a turn. She started to pull back from wanting to hang out with me, or even both of us together. Sue would claim that she just wanted to hang out with the boys, even though that only included my husband, and how she didn't want to be involved with other girls as it gave her anxiety. Although being bitter about the situation, I understood and gave her the time to hang out with my husband and space away from me. I found out about the affair while my husband was in the shower and left his phone unlocked in the room with me. She had called him, so I picked up. Without letting me get a word in, she started going off about how he was going to call her when he was in the shower and have Essie time, and how she couldn't wait for him to come over to her house tonight. I hung up immediately. I couldn't believe he would do that and thought it was a prank call and left it at that. Until later that night, he had randomly left the house with his computer open. I know I shouldn't have, but I went through their messages as his computer gets his text messages as well. This affair had been going on for about a year, and it's to the point that they're sending lovey quotes back and forth to one another and telling each other they love one another every day. He would also sleep call with her because she was in a bad state of mind, very consistently. At first, I passed it off as him being a good friend, but it eventually made me uncomfortable. He had also been telling her that one day he will convince me to become polyamorous, and so she can come live with us, and we will all be together. I am not poly, and have made it very clear to him since the start of the relationship that polyamory was a boundary for me and would never be considered. He has never mentioned anything about him being polyamorous as well during all this time. After I found out about the affair, I didn't mention anything to him for a while, but mentioned to him how I feel uncomfortable with her presence because it was obvious she had feelings for him, as well as saying I would like them to stop sleeping on calls with each other, hoping that he would come to the conclusion himself and leave her, but that didn't happen. It was eating me apart inside, so I finally confronted him about it. He told me he was just being selfish and how he loved both of us. I told him that I had made it clear before we got married that I would never be open to an open relationship or polyamory due to past relationships. He got upset asking how I found out and that I shouldn't be snooping through his stuff. I left the house after that and got a hotel room so I wouldn't be around him while he was so angry. He texted me the next day asking if we could talk about it all and where we go in the future. After a long talk of why he cheated and what all happened, he told me that he didn't want to lose me and that he would do something to himself if he lost me over his mistake. That's when I told him I would not continue to come around or be in his life if he doesn't kick her out of his life. I told him I would be open to fixing things, but would not be able to trust him again with her still in his life. He again got very angry and said I couldn't do this to him and I was ruining his chances of being happy. Am I the a-hole here? Well, in my opinion, OP clearly needs therapy to love herself more. OP is practically begging her cheating husband to leave his mistress, when he should be begging OP to stay with him, and stopping the affair shouldn't be a discussion. That's just messed up. I'm also 100% sure he will cheat again if OP forgives him. Don't you think so, guys? And now let's hear the community's opinion. He already chose her. You choose yourself. You don't need to be with someone who you'll never be able to trust again. That's just asking for a lifetime of stress and paranoia. Not the a-hole. It was already naive to let her hang out with your husband alone and call him at bedtime when they weren't friends before your marriage. It would be plain stupid to allow them to still see each other. He's a cheater, and she's a homewrecker. I definitely think you should divorce him, but at the very least, he needs to completely cut contact with her. Him blaming you for going through his stuff and saying he'd K himself if he lost you is also extremely manipulative. Why is this even a question? It's obvious he doesn't care about how you feel. He even has the audacity to be mad when you're making him choose. What's there left to say? This man will never be content with you. I wouldn't even be surprised if there's more than the two of you. So, to give some context, my father is a gynecologist that used to work in the NHS of my country, where most people would get free health care, as in most countries, including Planned Parenthood consultations and methods. Whenever a doctor has to make a procedure, they have to ask the patient, or a family member, legal guardian if the patient is unconscious, for approval and a signature, after explaining the options and risks. One day, my father did this to one of his patients. She wanted to get a contraceptive patch to avoid getting pregnant. He told her that, as all methods, it wasn't perfect, but that it was one of the best, with up to a 99.7% success rate. But she needed to regularly come to get it checked so it could have the best results. If used incorrectly, it can decrease to a 91%. She agreed and signed the approval. One day, that patient came very angry at him with his lawyer. She was suing my dad because she got pregnant and wanted him to pay child support until her child turned 18. My dad was shocked, as she knew the risks, and in his 20 years of working in the NHS and privately, no one had ever had the nerve to ask for such ridiculous request. He got a lawyer, and after 2 years of legal bureaucracy and what should have been an open and closed case, because he had the approval signed by her, acknowledging she knew the risks, he won. I don't think he got paid anything, because our legal system sucks, but at least he could get this behind him. My mom often jokes about his other family, and we laugh about it, because it was something very incredible and weird. Edit. Many have mentioned how ridiculous it is that it took that long to resolve this case. This is the norm in my country. My comment on how it should have been just an open and closed case is just the general common sense. But my parents have told me many similar stories of doctors getting sued and the process being this long, despite how straightforward they might seem at first. The courts aren't in person like I've seen it is the case in America and other places. Here, most people never see their judges. Usually, the lawyers just gather documents and evidence and submit it to the government offices and wait for the judges to ask for more documents, or make corrections, or get signatures. And there are other tools in our law that can help victims, but usually make all the legal processes slower. He should have countered her with, well, if I'm responsible for the baby, I'm going for full custody. I have a secure home life and I'm a doctor. You think you stand a chance? You don't even know how babies are made. Your dad should have flat out laughed at both the lady and the lawyer's faces and tell them he's not the father of her kid since he's never slept with her, so he's not responsible for any child support, and that he won't pay a single dime for a kid that was never his to begin with, no matter what any attempt at taking him to court might say. Tell crazy lady and lawyer that he bets the court would have laughed them both out of the room once they explained how a man who's never slept with the lady is somehow responsible for paying another man's child support, just because the contraceptive she used failed on the Real Plus, unless this was before paternity tests. Until a paternity test came back proving your dad was the bio dad, no court should have been able to force him to do it. He wasn't obligated to pay squat if he didn't want, especially since the two of them weren't even married.